The Galactic Vanguard Combat Academy was the most technologically advanced military institution in the known universe. It trained champions, tacticians, war leaders, beings capable of commanding fleets across 3 dimensions of space. Its halls were lined with plasma scorch marks and alloy split training dummies, monuments to centuries of evolution and warfare. So when a human walked into its recruitment hall carrying nothing but a steel sword, the entire room fell silent. She wasn't large. She wasn't armored. She looked like someone who should have been holding a data pad, not an ancient blade forged from primitive metallurgy. Her name was Elara Ward, and she walked with the calm, grounded confidence of someone who already understood the battlefield better than anyone around her. The alien instructor assigned to greet new cadets, a towering, 4-armed Threxan named Instructor Vortal, stared at the sword, then barked out a laugh so loud it echoed across the high-ceilinged hall. "You brought steel into a plasma academy." His mandibles clicked with amusement. "Cadet, you cannot block plasma with metal. It vaporizes on contact." Elara simply rested the sword's tip against the floor, both hands on its hilt. "Then I won't block," she said. More laughter broke out, from reptilian cadets, crystalline trainees, even a few instructors. In a facility where even knives were made from energy-woven alloys, the sight of a crude solid blade felt like a joke. But Elara wasn't smiling, and when Vortal noticed her expression, quiet, steady, unafraid, something shifted behind his eyes. Annoyance and a flicker of curiosity. "Very well," he growled. "Prove your claim. I will demonstrate why steel is obsolete. Draw your weapon." Elara lifted the blade. The room's lights reflected off its surface, simple, unadorned, unpowered. But in her hands, it felt alive. Vortal ignited his plasma blade with a hiss that sent heat rippling across the floor. The crowd stepped back, expecting Elara to drop her sword and run. Instead, she stepped forward. "Begin," the instructor said. He swung, and the air tore open with blue fire. Every cadet watching expected the human's sword to vaporize, maybe even take her arm with it. But in that instant, Elara moved with precision honed through a lifetime on a world that never stopped trying to kill her. She slipped under the strike, pivoting so close that the plasma heat brushed past her hair. One breath. One heartbeat. She wasn't trying to block. She was trying to win. The laughter faded. The academy leaned in, and Elara Ward showed the galaxy the first hint of why she'd come here. Not to learn what they knew, but to remind them what they'd forgotten. Instructor Vortal recovered quickly, all 4 arms shifting into a combat-ready configuration. His plasma blade hummed with lethal heat, bright enough to cast wavering shadows across the arena floor. "You survived one swing," he rumbled. "Do not mistake that for proficiency." But Elara wasn't listening to his words. She was listening to his movements. Plasma blades sang differently from steel. They cut with light, not weight. They had no resistance, no feedback, and their wielders fought like creatures who'd forgotten consequences. "You hold that weapon like it has no cost," she said softly. Vortal blinked. "What?" Elara adjusted her footing. Her sword angled low, not in defense, but in readiness. "In your mind," she continued, "you've never fought something that could break you." It was an insult and a truth. The instructor surged forward, swinging with frightening speed. Plasma arcs sliced the air. The crowd flinched. Several cadets instinctively shielded their eyes. A direct hit would cut Elara in half. But she didn't try to meet the blade. She watched Vortal's shoulders, his stance, the micro shifts in his weight. Her eyes moved ahead of his strikes, predicting the path of the weapon before it carved through the space she occupied. She stepped where the plasma wouldn't be, not where it was. Vortal struck again, and again. Sparks exploded as molten droplets from his blade scattered across the floor. Elara moved through the storm with frightening grace, letting heat kiss her skin, letting air pressure guide her next shift. She never blocked, never clashed. She flowed like water around a meteor. Cadets stared in disbelief, whispering, "She's reading him before he even swings." That's impossible. Plasma combat is too fast. No, she's predicting. Vortal roared in frustration. He wasn't used to opponents who refused to die. His next swing came with full force, a strike meant to shatter shields and sever armored limbs. Elara didn't dodge. This time, she stepped into the attack. Gasps filled the arena. Just as the plasma blade came down, she twisted her sword, scraping its flat side against the instructor's forearm, redirecting, pushing, guiding just enough of the angle to make the beam miss by inches. It wasn't steel blocking plasma. It was physics blocking arrogance. Vortal stumbled, thrown off balance for the first time in years. And Elara struck, not with the blade, but with the pommel. A sharp, brutal blow to a nerve cluster beneath his jaw. The giant collapsed to one knee. Silence fell over the arena like a dropped curtain. She could have finished him. Every species present knew that. Instead, she lowered her sword. "You don't need the strongest weapon," she said softly. "You need the one you understand best." The instructor stared up at her, stunned. And for the first time since she'd arrived, no one laughed. Word of the duel spread through the academy faster than a plasma discharge. By evening, Elara couldn't walk down a hallway without cadets glancing at the swords strapped to her back, some in awe, others in suspicion, a few in outright fear. But Instructor Vortal, he wasn't humiliated. He was intrigued. He summoned Elara to the tactical amphitheater, an enormous, circular chamber where holographic wars played out in real time. It was a place usually reserved for senior officers and advanced cadets. When she entered, he stood alone at the center, all four arms folded. "You embarrass me today," he said plainly. Elara kept her expression calm. "That wasn't my intention." "I know," he replied, "and that is why I'm not angry." He tapped a control on the hollow dais. A star map burst to life, red zones pulsing like infected wounds across 3 sectors of space. Entire shipping lanes flickered with missing vessel markers. "This is why I wanted to speak with you." Elara frowned. "What am I looking at?" "Ships," Vortal said, "that vanished without distress signals, without debris, without any trace. Civilian, military, diplomatic. Over the last 4 months, entire crews have simply disappeared." The map zoomed toward a cluster of points on the galaxy's outer rim. "These systems lie near an uncharted anomaly our deep-range probes recently detected, an object that behaves like a structure, yet not one built by any known species." Elara stepped closer, studying the shifting geometric patterns inside the anomaly. It wasn't a black hole. It wasn't a station. It wasn't even stable. Its edges flickered like a glitch in space itself. "What does this have to do with me?" she asked quietly. Vortal looked at her sword. A strike team was assembled 3 weeks ago. They were equipped with the finest plasma and photon weaponry the Federation has. They did not return. A cold realization pulled at her thoughts. "You think plasma didn't work?" she said. He nodded. Energy weapons failed entirely. Their transmissions were warped. Power cells drained instantly, almost as if something inside the anomaly consumed energy. The team never got past the outer perimeter. Elara exhaled slowly. "And you want me to bring a sword?" "Not just a sword," Vortal said. "A mind trained in a form of combat unaffected by what we now believe is a dimensional interference field." She hesitated. "You want me to explore something that kills anything powered?" "No," he corrected. "I want you to help us retrieve them." He expanded the map again, highlighting not just ships, but life signs trapped in fragmented pockets. Thousands of them, alive, suspended, unable to escape. Elara's heartbeat cooled into steel. "When do we leave?" she asked. Vortal gave the faintest smile. "Tomorrow at dawn. And this time, Cadet Wynn, you won't be fighting me." Dawn filtered through the Academy's crystalline skylights as Elara entered the pre-launch chamber. The room buzzed with subdued tension, far quieter than she expected for a mission involving thousands of missing lives. Vortal stood at the center alongside 2 other senior instructors, each from different species, each radiating the same mix of apprehension and grim urgency. A holographic projection of the anomaly spun above the briefing table, no longer a chaotic distortion, but a layered, fractal labyrinth of shifting geometry. It looked like space itself was trying to form a structure, but kept forgetting the blueprint halfway through. Vortal gestured toward it. We call it the reverberant gate. It behaves like a doorway, yet none of our probes reach the other side. They just fold. One of the other instructors, a tall Iric with translucent skin, stepped forward. Our analysis indicates that any energy, fractures upon crossing the outer boundary. Plasma, ion engines, photon communications. Our technology renders itself useless the moment it touches the field. Elara crossed her arms. So you want old tech? Older than old, the Iric replied. We want something that does not rely on energy signatures at all. Her hand touched the hilt of her sword involuntarily. Vortal continued. Your weapon, your reflexes, your combat instinct is unaffected by the interference. That makes you uniquely capable of entering the gate without destabilizing it. Does the mission have an objective? Elara asked. 3, Vortal said, raising 3 fingers. Locate the missing teams, alive or otherwise. Identify the source of the anomaly, and, if possible, extract it before it destabilizes the sector. Elara blinked. Extract it? That thing is the size of a moon. Another instructor shook his head. Not the structure, the core phenomenon, the gate's anchor point. The field originates from a single repeating pattern we believe is buried deep inside. Elara considered this. And if I find it, then you do what you did yesterday, Vortal said. You attack the impossible. She didn't know whether to feel honored or deeply concerned. A sudden tremor ran through the projection. A ripple traced along its surface, like something behind the gate was pushing outward. Everyone fell silent. The Iric's skin flickered with alarm. The anomaly is expanding. We estimate it will reach inhabited space within 9 days. Elara straightened. Then what are we waiting for? Vortal handed her a compact pack of supplies. Rope, rations, tools. None of them powered. No energy. No plasma. No tech, he reminded her. Just your instincts and that blade of yours. She strapped the pack on, feeling its weight settle into her shoulders. Fine, she said. But if this thing eats starships, how do I get inside? Vortal gave a slow, unsettling smile. We found a way. A simple way. One we never considered before. He pointed toward the launch bay behind her. The gate doesn't react to objects that aren't powered. So you're not flying in. She followed his gesture and froze. You're dropping me? From orbit, Vortal said. The drop bay doors yawned open like the mouth of some titanic beast, exposing a panorama of stars and the swirling distortion of the reverberant gate far below. Even from orbit, the anomaly looked wrong. Space should not ripple. Light should not bend in jagged, rhythmic pulses. Nothing natural moved in geometric patterns. Elara stood on the edge of the deployment platform while technicians secured the final straps of her atmospheric descent harness. A glorified bundle of heat-resistant cloth and glider membranes. No thrusters, no stabilizers, no power navigation systems. Nothing that emitted energy. Your descent angle is critical, warned the Iric technician monitoring her vitals. Too shallow and you'll skip off the field. Too steep and you'll punch through the outer turbulence layer and probably liquefy. Elara offered a thin smile. Then I'll aim for not dead. Behind her, Vortal approached. His heavy footsteps echoed on the metallic deck, each one measured, deliberate. You don't have to do this alone, he said quietly. Elara raised an eyebrow. Didn't you tell me yesterday that working alone is the human specialty? Yes, he growled, but I didn't think you'd be doing orbital re-entry with a sword. She tapped the steel blade strapped across her back. Blame physics, not me. For a moment, Vortal hesitated. Then he placed a closed fist against his chest in a Raltheri warrior salute. Return alive, cadet. I have more lessons planned. Then I can't disappoint you, she said, stepping toward the edge. A warning chime sounded. No energy readouts, just a mechanical bell. The launch officer yelled over the wind. Descent window opening. 5 seconds. Elara's heartbeat steadied. Her hands relaxed. Her breathing slowed. Instinct took over. The same instinct honed on Earth's brutal training grounds, where storms, cliffs, and predators taught a simple rule: survive with whatever you have. 3. The gate pulsed below, its surface shimmering like liquid glass trapped in a fractal prison. 2. She stepped into her stance, muscles coiled, mind clear. 1. Elara leaned forward and fell into the void. The wind slammed into her instantly, pulling her downward at lethal speed as she tucked her limbs to stabilize her fall. Flames licked along the edges of her glider membrane as she broke into the upper atmosphere around the gate. Air turned into fire. Fire turned into pressure. Pressure turned into a vibrating roar across her bones. The anomaly surged upward to meet her, a spiraling maw of shimmering angles and impossible depth. The turbulence hit like a hammer. Her harness jerked violently, the glider membrane snapping taut as she was flung sideways. She gritted her teeth, adjusting her angle with micro-movements of her arms and hips, letting instinct override fear. Then, impact. The world went silent. Colors inverted. Shapes folded. Gravity twisted. Elara passed through the boundary of the gate. And everything changed. Elara didn't land so much as reassemble. One moment she was plummeting toward the anomaly. The next she was standing upright on solid ground, though ground felt like the wrong word. The surface beneath her boots was smooth and metallic, but not cold. It pulsed faintly like something breathing. She looked up and froze. The inside of the reverberant gate wasn't a chamber or cavern. It was a city, an impossible one, stretching in every direction, including upward and sideways, as if gravity couldn't make up its mind. Structures curved into spirals, platforms floated without support, and translucent corridors hung, suspended in midair like veins in a colossal creature. Everything glowed with faint silver-blue light, pulsing in rhythmic waves. It looked abandoned, but not empty. The air vibrated softly, not with sound but sensation, like faint whispers brushing across her skin. She touched the steel sword on her back. It hummed, not from magic or technology, but from the gate reacting to the iron alloy, pulling faint ripples of energy toward it. "Oh," she whispered, "so that's why they needed me." A distant metallic crash snapped her to attention. Elara crouched low, scanning the maze-like environment. Then she saw them. A group of survivors, humans, Ralthari, Iric, even a few species she didn't recognize. Huddled inside a half-collapsed energy cell 2 levels below her. Their bodies moved in glitching, jittering motions, flickering like bad holograms. Phase drift. They were trapped between stable and unstable states. If she touched them wrong, they might destabilize completely. If she left them, the gate would finish consuming them. "Hey," Elara called softly, sliding down a smooth ramp of shifting metal. "Stay calm. I'm here to help." A human officer, maybe late 30s, uniform shredded and flickering, looked up at her with wide, desperate eyes. You're solid," he rasped. "Ow!" "Long story," Elara said. Short version. Human biology breaks rules when stressed. Another crash echoed, closer this time. One of the survivors whispered, dread filling his voice. "It found us." The metal wall behind them rippled. Then something pushed through. A creature. No. An algorithm wearing a body. Phased into existence, its form constantly rearranging like shifting shards of glass and metal. It had no eyes, yet Elara felt its attention lock onto her like a spotlight. It screeched, though the sound wasn't heard, only felt in her bones. The survivors recoiled. Elara drew her steel sword. The creature jerked backward, its form destabilizing at the sight of the blade. "Well," Elara muttered, raising her stance. "Looks like you and I have some history." The creature lunged. Elara swung. Steel met impossible matter and held. The creature convulsed violently, rippling backward from the strike as the sword carved a clean arc of stability through its unstable form. The survivors gasped. Elara stepped forward. "All right, she murmured. "Let's finish this." The creature recoiled, shrieking in ultrasonic waves that made the structures around them vibrate like a struck chime. Elara didn't flinch. The sword's edge hummed with resonant feedback. Not magical energy, but the gate's physics struggling to parse the stubborn solidity of human-forged metal. "Yeah," she muttered, stepping into a tighter stance. "I don't like you either." The creature surged forward again, its limbs, if they were limbs, splintering into jagged crystalline blades. The attack came at an angle that would have gutted anyone relying on armor. But Elara didn't need armor. She needed timing. She pivoted, letting the strike slice the air millimeters from her ribs, then slammed her shoulder into the entity's shifting torso. It felt like striking a vibrating engine wrapped in static. Pain flared up her arm, but she didn't stop. She drove the steel sword downward, cleaving through the creature's midsection. This time, it didn't just recoil, it fractured. Chunks of shimmering matter broke off like shattered glass, scattering across the metallic floor and dissolving into light. Behind her, the survivors stared in breathless disbelief. A young Iric whispered, "T, that weapon, why does it work?" Elara didn't take her eyes off the creature, which was reforming, though slower now, struggling to maintain cohesion. "It's not the weapon," she said. "It's the simplicity." The human officer squinted. "Meaning, everything here is too advanced," Elara explained, circling the failing entity. "Too dependent on the gate's physics. Steel doesn't obey those rules. It resists the resonance instead of adapting to it." The creature lunged again, this time trying to engulf her whole in a swirling mass of fractal limbs. Elara didn't retreat. She stepped into the attack. For a horrifying moment, she vanished inside the creature's unstable body, her form jittering, phasing, flickering. The survivors gasped. Then a flash of steel burst out from within. A second later, Elara stumbled free, coughing but alive, as the creature convulsed violently behind her. The sword had pierced its core, whatever passed for one. The entity spasmed, its structure unraveling into cascading shards of energy. With a final, echoing wail, it disintegrated into a ripple of light. Silence fell. Elara wiped her mouth with the back of her hand and sheathed the sword. "Okay," she said, turning to the group. "We're moving, before more of those things spawn." A Ralthari observer weakly raised a hand. "You killed a Phase Warden with a piece of metal." Elara shrugged. "They're not used to things that don't play by their rules. Luckily, humans don't even follow our own rules." Some of the survivors laughed, a shaky, exhausted sound, but real. Elara approached the flickering energy cell that held them. Its field oscillated chaotically, trapping them between stable and unstable states. "Can you get us out?" the human officer asked. "Yeah," she said, gripping the sword. "I just need to break a universal constant or two." She raised the blade and struck. The energy shell cracked like glass, releasing a shockwave of silver-blue light. The survivors collapsed forward, no longer flickering, breathing real air again. Elara steadied the officer as he staggered. "Easy, you're back in one universe now." He looked at her with awe. "Who are you?" Elara tightened her grip on the steel sword and scanned the shifting city for more threats. "A human," she said, "which means we're not done yet." With the survivors free and stabilizing, the distorted city began to tremble. Not from combat, but from collapse. The shimmering towers folded in on themselves like melting origami, bending along angles that no species was meant to perceive. "The gate is destabilizing," shouted the Iric medic. Elara scanned the horizon. The rippling boundary that led back into real space was shrinking, cinching tight like the iris of an eye. "We're leaving," she ordered. "Now!" The survivors struggled to their feet, but many were weak, muscles atrophied from temporal distortion. Some could barely walk. Elara didn't hesitate. She slung one officer over her shoulder, grabbed another by the arm, and jerked her chin at the rest. "Move! Use each other for support. I'll take the front." The ground fractured behind them, plates of metallic geometry peeling away and tumbling into a void that pulsed like an exposed heartbeat. Creatures began forming within the cracks. Small ones, fragile ones, but still dangerous. They shrieked in metallic harmonics as they crawled out of the rupturing architecture. Elara sprinted ahead, sword flashing. She didn't bother killing them. She targeted support beams, cutting through them in precise arcs. Entire chunks of the shifting city collapsed, blocking the creature's path. A Ralthari warrior limped at her side. "You wield that thing like it was designed for this realm." She barked a laugh despite the chaos. "Steel's not designed for anything. That's why it works." The exit loomed ahead, a thinning veil of rippling light. Beyond it, she could see the silhouettes of Academy rescue ships holding position, waiting, hoping. The gate spasmed. The exit shrank further. "Go!" Elara shouted. Through the breach, the survivors hurled themselves into the opening, stumbling back into real space one by one. The boundary edges sparked violently, an unmistakable sign of imminent collapse. The last survivor dove through. Elara turned to follow, but the ground under her feet disintegrated. She dropped into a widening chasm of raw, formless geometry. Instinct took over. She jammed the steel sword into the collapsing surface, the blade biting into something that had no right to be solid. The sword held, anchored by stubborn human metallurgy. Clinging to the hilt, Elara swung her body forward and vaulted toward the exit. The gate convulsed violently behind her. She dove and exploded out the other side in a shower of sparks, tumbling across the stable deck of the nearest rescue craft. The gate sealed shut with a thunderclap that rattled the hull. For a long moment, the ship was silent except for the ragged coughing of survivors and the hum of stabilizers. Then someone whispered, "She did it." Another voice, Ralthari, shaking, added, "She beat the anomaly with a sword." Elara sat up slowly, wiping dust from her face. Her hair was singed, her uniform torn, and her sword, her simple, human-made steel sword, was warped but unbroken. The forward bay doors opened, revealing Instructor Vortal. His stern expression cracked into something Elara had never seen before. Respect. He stepped forward and bowed, a full warrior's bow, deep, reverent, the kind reserved for legends. "Cadet Elara Ward," he rumbled, "you have taught this academy a lesson no plasma forge or combat simulator ever could." She raised an eyebrow. "And what lesson is that?" Vortal's voice dropped to a quiet, awed growl. "That humans cannot be calculated." A murmur swept across the deck. Agreement, admiration, fear, wonder. Elara finally allowed herself a tired smile. "Good," she said. "Then class is dismissed." And somewhere, deep in the archives of the Galactic Federation, a new protocol was added. When encountering humans, never assume their limits.